My favorite thing about Islam, I have to take a minute to think. Wow, I love it all.
Well, my favorite thing about Islam is Tawheed. I mean, this is something that impacts all aspects of life. A lot of people look at theology as some abstract thing, but it affects your thinking. When you understand the beauty of Tawheed and what it did in context of history, of just unbinding you from false mechanisms, pathways to good, to God, whether it be charms, whether it be other human beings who you might seek blessing from, or so on and so forth.
Tawheed is the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from that flows everything else. Because when you really understand that your dependence is purely and fully on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, which then gives you the full independence from everything else on this planet. And that is such a powerful feeling.
In Islam, anyone in any situation can be the perfect Muslim, because it's not about doing some extraordinary feat, or it's just that everything you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can have a job. I mean, you don't have to give up the world and give up your possessions and live in a forest or volunteer. I mean, you can just have your regular job, but if you're doing it with the right intention, it's ibadah, it's worship.
Islam is a way to make everything correct as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. Islam is not just to teach you to 9 to 5 or Jum'ah do things. Islam is teaching you to live correctly.
What is my favorite thing about Islam? That it's an intellectual faith, that you use your intellect to arrive at submission in essence. It's not that everything in the deen has to have, logic to it per se, but you use your intellect to arrive at the conclusion of faith. Whereas in many other situations, you only are told to just have faith and submit blindly. And subhanAllah, for me, being born in America, I didn't come from overseas, from a Muslim country per se. That was something that was very important to me in discovering Islam. So I very much so consider myself a revert, because I did go through a period of exploration. And it just made sense. All the answers were there, alhamdulillah.
There is not one thing that I can think of that concerns me as a human that is not addressed in Islam. There is no question that I can't find an answer for. It's very encompassing.
My favorite thing about Islam is dhikr and Quran. Because everything around you can fall and fail, but those things won't fail. That's why one poet, he said, وَاشْدُدْ بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ مُعْتَصِمًا فَإِنَّهُ الرُّكْنُ إِنْ خَانَتْكَ أَرْكَانُ. One Afghan poet, he said, cling to the book of Allah earnestly, because it's a pillar when all other pillars will crumble.
In the Quran it says, perhaps you love something and, I'm probably not quoting it right, but perhaps you love something and, but it's not meant for you. Allah has something better for you. So even if something doesn't work out for you in this life or at the moment, you can always, it's always like comforting to know that Allah always has a better plan for you.
From a woman's perspective, I think my favorite thing about Islam would be my hijab. I feel like it makes me unique from everyone else, and I feel like I can express my ways or I have a wider horizon than others.
My most favorite thing about Islam is the bond of brotherhood that comes as a result of this beautiful religion.
The first thing that came to my mind is probably the best thing, is that He made us one. That He made us from one human soul that lives in us. Adam lives in us today, and that we can know each other and be connected, and that every man, woman, and child is my brother and my sister.
In fact, something which is essential, this relationship between peace, intimate peace, salamat al-nafs, and freedom. In fact, there is something which is essential in Islam. You will never get this inner peace if you don't free yourself, from your ego, and from all the illusion of life. So get true freedom, you will get deep peace.
My favorite thing about Islam is that not only is it a religion of peace, but it's also a religion of forgiveness, and that in general we should always remember that we have to forgive one another, forgive even ourselves if we do something wrong, and that Allah even Allah is the forgiver, so it's always good to remember that.
The constant search for personal self-improvement and for contribution to society. That is not just one little thing. At all times you're trying to be better yourself and you're trying to contribute to those around you.
My favorite thing about Islam would be the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Reading the seerah and knowing the Prophet as he was and what he did and what he went through and how amazingly beautiful his soul and his spirit still shows throughout history by the stories the Sahaba tell and how amazing of a human being he was, I feel like is the most amazing thing in Islam, and how he was absolutely willing to sit and stand and pray for people he had never met before, all because they believed in him, is astonishing and amazing. And I don't know, I just love the Prophet ﷺ.